We're going to dive in here. I am Mari, Director of Product at Action Network. Been with Action Network for about 7 years. The main part of my job is building out the right features with all of our partners. One of my favorite things to do on Action Network is create engaging automated ladders using decision steps, maybe a mobile ladder. You can do a lot of fun stuff. And my fave summer activity is taking my newly minted 1-year-old baby to the pool. Hey, Becca. Hey, Crystal. Cool. So we're going to dive in. This might not take too long. We're a pretty small group, which is great. So if you have questions, you can put them right in the chat. You can also email me afterwards. I can provide my email address if there's some follow-up that you want to have, and I'm happy to stay on for a while afterwards. We're going to go over a number of the key features in the last deploy. So I'm going to take you on a little tour of the settings tab, just kind of reminding you of some of what's possible. We have a couple of new things there. We're going to talk through some cool email updates. I'm going to talk about the Google Drive sync that we deployed actually a little earlier in the year, but we haven't talked about yet. And we are going to talk about A/B testing wrappers, which is a new feature that we have. So without further ado, let's talk about the settings tab, which I think is a place that a lot of folks don't go very often, but we have some new stuff that I want to flag. So first, we have a new setting here in the General tab. You can click here to get notifications when an email that you've sent or mobile message is stopped, delayed, or not sent. So stopping an email or mobile message is something that you do manually. So you are able to, if you kind of have a typo or you accidentally send something out that you don't want to, you're able to click stop on the manage page. The issue with this is that our emails on Action Network send pretty quickly. So depending on the size of your list and depending on when you hit that stop button, you might not get a notification because the email will have been fully sent out. Now, every time if you put your email address in here, I can put mine in here. Every time you hit stop on an email or mobile message, if you get the notification set up, you can get an email just letting you know that you did successfully stop it, even if the email was fully sent out. So you have a little bit of a history there. The other two kind of related things that you can get notifications around is if an email or mobile message is delayed or it's not sent when it was supposed to be. And delayed, that is like a 15-minute delay. So if it takes longer than 15 minutes for an email to go out, you would get a notification, which is great. You know, this doesn't happen very often, but it's just a nice safety net to make sure all your content is going out when it should. Couple other things. If I scroll down, 2FA is something you've been able to enable and require for if you have a network, all children, or just for your group. Now, if you enable it, you can also decide which types of two-factor you want to allow. So in this case, any type is the default. You can say only apps. So like Authy is what I use, or a physical device. Or you can do kind of the most secure option is only physical devices. The next time somebody logs in, they will have to switch their authentication method to match the requirement. So that's new, kind of a nice security feature. We definitely recommend having 2FA required for your group and walking any admin through the process of setting it up if you need to. The other things I wanted to flag here, this is an oldie but a goodie, enabling blank questions in the form builder. So if you'll recall, there are two different ways to create questions. You can do it straight when you're creating an action. It's an ad hoc question. It's not going to show up in your question library. Or you can go to the details menu and go to questions and custom fields and add questions that can be reused to your question library. So this, allowing people to create ad hoc questions via the form builder, kind of blank questions. You can end up with a lot of different questions. You have to kind of recreate them from scratch every time. So having this off will force people to use the question library. So it can kind of make the process longer, but it can lead to cleaner data. So that's just a hidden one that maybe a lot of folks don't know about. And then in the email settings, just to scroll down, wanted to make sure everybody knows about these default queries. So you can set include and exclude default queries. So if you have, or reports, so if you have a couple of queries that you're using almost every time, I can include them. I apparently have one named Mari, or I can have it on the exclude side and I can save it. Every time I go to write an email, this is going to show up and I can remove it. And the other cool one that is relatively recent is this: if you schedule an email, there's two different ways that sending can happen. You can schedule it to go out and then it will refresh. So your audience will refresh before sending. So you'll get kind of a new audience based on updated data, or it'll be locked in, which is the default. So you lock in your audience and you schedule it to go out. You can make the default refresh before sending by checking this box here and clicking save. So I'm going to click here to save my new settings and just flagging that this also exists if you do have mobile set up for your program. So you can do default mobile queries and you can also do default refresh before sending. So just some fun stuff. I definitely recommend, in the general settings, just peruse, maybe set up some notifications for you, for folks on your team for some of these key things, maybe do the 2FA stuff, but make sure that all of your settings have been looked at in the last 30 to 60 days and you're not missing anything. Before I move on, any questions specifically about this? Cool. All right, I'm going to keep going here. The next, and please put stuff in the chat. I know this is kind of straightforward so far. The next thing I want to talk through is some updates that we've made to email. So the first thing I want to talk about is clips. This is kind of an advanced feature, but I want to just make sure everyone is aware of some big, exciting updates that we made to clips so you can personalize your fundraising asks. So for example, these are kind of the new things that we added. So now you can output somebody's average donation amount. You can do count of donations, total donation amount, first donation amount. And we've always had highest previous contribution, latest donation amount, and latest donation date. So this is, maybe you have an ActBlue sync set up, maybe you're using our native fundraising forms. This is kind of information that you can output that's personalized. So you could, for example, I have below here your average donation in the last 30 days. You've donated 9 times this year. Can you make it 10 today? And you can do date formatting. So that's the kind of the other piece of this is you could say your average donation in the last year, you've donated 4 times this year, you donated, $11 this month. All of these can be date limited, which is exciting. I do want to flag that this is kind of in this box up here. If you are using date ranges, you have to use the same, you can't use 2 different date ranges for the same clip, which is a little confusing, but you want to make sure that you're using one date range for each clip. Any questions about this stuff that I can answer? Otherwise, I'm going to move on. This is really only relevant if you're running kind of more kind of sophisticated, personalized fundraising programs and are deep into that work. Okay. The next piece that I want to talk through is some updates to buttons in Action Network, which is very exciting. So, depending on if you're using our drag and drop editor or visual HTML editor, in our drag and drop, there's a lot of customization you can do. You can do columns, you can create buttons, you can do headers, but it's not very flexible. So visual HTML is very flexible, but it meant that you had to do some coding yourself, which not everybody is able to do. This came from the CLC, which is very exciting in Canada. the ability to insert buttons without having to code. So it's essentially a button builder. If you click on more when you're writing an email, insert a button, or you can do social links. So I created this button using the button builder. I can create another one here just to show you what it looks like. I'm just going to do a regular button, and you can see its URL. You can open in a new tab. And then it is the button text, or we could do submit or whatever. I'm going to do take action. And then we have the background color, which you can change. So I'll make this one lime green. The text color is going to stay white. And then you can control the width, font, and radius. So the radius is like the curving of the button. So you can control the size. So you can't do everything here. If you want like a highly customized button, you're still going to have to know how to do some coding. But I can insert this, and I think it looks great here. If I want to make edits, I'm going to have to start from the top or do the actual kind of HTML changes within the text here. A cool thing you can also do is if you find some buttons you like, you can copy the code here and you can create a snippet. So snippets are like saved bits of code that you have styled and use often. So instead of kind of making adjustments on the fly, you can just have it saved here. I have a snippet test here that is saved. So buttons are great. We also do have social buttons. So if I go down to the footer, I can insert some social links. We have some network logos built in. So if I wanted to do like a YouTube link, I'm just putting in a random link here. And then I can choose to center, left or right align. I'm going to center it and add it in. And now you can see I have a little YouTube button at the bottom of my email, which is great. So those are two, I think, nice updates here. Are there any questions about the buttons in the button builder that I can answer? Cool. Okay, so the next thing, very briefly wanted to note is that we built out some default templates for the drag and drop. So if I go back to my email, if I'm in drag and drop mode, which I can switch over, it's going to delete all my content, which is fine. We now have these templates that you can use. So action oriented, I can apply. Our designers created these, and it's just a way to give you a starting place for some of these templates. I don't know about y'all, but I am not the most design oriented person in the world. And so it can take me a long time to make an email look the way that I want it to. This just gives you kind of a starting point. So we have 3 different templates you can choose from. We have action, fundraising, and newsletter styles. And if you go to in details, if I go to email wrappers and layouts, what I'd recommend doing is duplicating them and making edits. So I can click, I think I've already done that here. I can duplicate and then I can make edits. So I'm not actually just using the default, I'm adding our own logo. Maybe I'm changing up some of the styles here, adding some columns. There's a lot that you can do. Just wanted to flag that those exist. I know a lot of people like the drag and drop, which is great. It's a really nice tool. Okay. Any questions about the templates that I can answer? Cool. Okay. So yeah, it's fun. The next thing I want to flag, 2 kind of nice updates on the targeting page. So if I'm on the targeting page here, our top section, probably the most important, is our engagement section, and it's include exclude. The big update that we have is action activity. So you've always been able to include or exclude based on, emails received. So you've always been able to do action activity. So have they taken an action? Have they opened an email, clicked on an email? And now you can do, have they received emails, which is really helpful. So in this case, I could do something like I want to target everybody on my list who's received one email in the last 60 days. And you can see it pops up on the include side here, which is great, but I'm going to exclude people who have actually clicked, taken action, or subscribed in the last 30 days. So this is going to get me an audience of people who are receiving my emails over the last 2 months, but they're not engaging with them. So this is maybe people who are about to fall out of my actives universe. Maybe this is people who aren't engaging at all or haven't been for a long time, but it might be time to send them an email, maybe warm them up, try and get them engaged. This is an interesting universe to play around with. So that's great. It's include and exclude. So you could also exclude people who've received emails in the last 60 days and only target inactives. It's just kind of a shortcut. And the other one, if I scroll down, is in tags, sources, and fields. And one thing is, I'm just going to flag this. If I minimize this, jump to filter is really nice. So I know I'm looking for field values. I'm going to click it and it's going to open it for me and bring me to that spot on the page. There are a ton of filters. There are really a lot of useful stuff you can do on this page, but it can be hard to find what you're looking for. Here I'm targeting by field values. This is a slightly more advanced feature, I will say, but it allows you to really dig into targeting people based on like what they have in either a core or custom field. So the update, kind of a shortcut here, is if you are doing domain specific work. So like I only want to hit my Gmail people because I'm doing some domain rehab on people who have a Gmail email, or maybe it's Comcast, which is really hard, or Microsoft or whatever. Now you can click here, and this is going to give you everybody with any iteration of a Gmail address. So it's like .co, .uk, kind of whatever. This is going to give you all of those people. It's a nice little shortcut. I can click to add, and now you can see this is the other update. We added the ands and ors, which I love, on the targeting page. So now you can see emails received, one email in the last 60 days, and they also have a Gmail address, but they have not engaged in the last 60 days. So this is a nice, interesting universe for me to maybe send an email to. So Andrew, it means that the email was sent. That's a good question. So Andrew asked in the chat, does the emails received mean that the email was actually delivered or just sent? It means that they were like targeted in an email and it was sent. Other questions about these two new updates, or I'm happy to also talk about any other filters on this page if that's helpful. All right, we're gonna scoot along here. So maybe the feature that I am most excited about from this last deploy is once you've sent an email, so this page is familiar, it is on the email manage page. Once you sent an email, you used to just have these stats that would show you your opens, clicks. We added verified, unverified reporting as well. Now we added a new tab, which is exciting, which are your first hour stats. So this is a cool indicator to check out and keep track of. It shows you a kind of freeze of your email stats 1 hour into sending. And this is a good place to look if you're wondering, should I expand my universe? How well is this email doing? You can look back retroactively and can kind of compare your 1 hour stats across different emails. It's a nice, stable data point. And especially looking, if you do run a fundraising program, especially looking at kind of total raised, some of these donation stats, first hour in, that's a good indication if it's doing really well that you want to expand and send to maybe less active portions of your list. So this is super fun, excited about this. The other piece here to flag is the domain tracking. So Gmail now, again, just if you are you're feeling like you're having trouble with some domains and you want to be able to dive in, This gives you a quick snapshot of like, how did this email do with Outlook? Okay, we're still struggling with Outlook. How did it do with MSN, Hotmail? So you can kind of do this drop down, and we do, a reminder on the general group manage page. You can download your all of your historical stats by domain, but this just gives you a quick view on an email by email basis. And this one was a nice one that we worked on with the DNC. Any questions about this one that I can answer? Cool. Okay. So the next thing I want to show is an integration with Google Drive. So for me, I much prefer to do any sort of kind of data manipulation in Google Sheets versus having to do a CSV or an Excel file. So we have a new integration with Google Drive that you may have seen. This was deployed this year. In the details menu, go down to API and sync, and you can see your Google Drive here. It's enabled. I'm going to clear my settings and we can set it up together. So I'm going to have my Google. If I go to Google Drive, there are two steps. The first step is to copy and paste this and make sure that your folder is shared with this kind of address. So if I go to, I have one that I called AN files. If I go to sharing, which is right here, I can see, okay, great. It's already shared and it's an editor, which is what it needs to be. So that part is already set up. So I'm just going to copy the URL here, paste it into my Google Drive folder spot here, and then click to validate. And then you can see it's enabled, which is great. So now if I go back to my group and I go to a report or an action manage page and I go to results, I have a new button here, which is fun. So you can download, as regular as a CSV, or you can click to export to Google Drive. And if I go back to my folder, I can see a new report was created here. I can click on it and then open with Google Sheets, and I can rename it. And then it's just a little easier than having to like download as a CSV, copy all of your data over. And it has all the headers here for you. This is kind of a fun one. It takes a little time to set up, but it is a nice shortcut depending on your preferences. It also keeps kind of everything all in one place, which is nice. It is per group. So, I set up that integration. It's not just for my user, it's for my whole group. So anybody who creates and downloads reports will have the option to add them to this folder. A nice thing to make accessible for everyone in your group. Yes, thanks, Dottie. I'm a big fan of this one too. Any other questions about the Google Sync that I can answer for folks? I have just one more thing that I want to highlight from this last deploy that's super helpful. Yeah, so Andrew, no ability to import from Google Drive yet. That's an interesting one. I might add that to our wish list. Okay. Happy to answer questions. I hope I'm not going too fast. If you have a question, put it in the chat. The last thing that I want to highlight today is Google, my brain is breaking, is the ability to A/B test page wrappers. So if I go to manage an action, you are going to see a new button here. So I'm going to I have two different wrappers here, Sun 50/50 layout and Sun full layout, full width. So I am going to click the plus button and I'm going to give a test. I'm going to test full width 50/50. And I'm going to choose my page wrappers. I can also go to my page wrappers kind of general page if you want to see what they look like here. And I'm going to create a test. So now you're going to see a couple things. You're going to see the page wrappers have been selected. I can't edit these anymore. But I do now have a test results tab, and you can see your current test results. So it is two different, this is the name, the start date, and I have my sun full, and I have my sun 50/50, and you can see percent of total actions and actions taken. Now, as we're going to randomly show every time someone clicks on a link, we're going to randomly show them a different page wrapper. So you'll be able to see like which page wrapper is causing people to take action more. Then you can choose a winner after a certain amount of time, kind of whenever you want to. And when I choose a winner and end my test, now if I go back, now you can see the page wrapper I chose, sun is now the default page wrapper. My test results are still visible here. And you can see the winner. And I can also click if I wanted to preview here, see what it looks like. Nice big sun there. This is the full width. So my form is at the bottom and I'm recognized here. So this is a fun one. It doesn't show you page views. It's really about actions taken because we're not measuring page views. But it's a nice, kind of another thing to test, another thing to try and optimize. You can do some long-term tests. You can test like different colors, logos, styles, whatever you want here. Different views of the same action, which is nice. So any questions about this? I'll say this is the last thing that I had on my list that I wanted to chat about today. So if there are other questions, you can put them in the chat. If you feel good, you can leave. I am going to send out a follow-up, which will include the recording for today and maybe some help docs if you want to dive in more. But I'm going to stick around. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat or you can put them in the Q&A, either one. Andrew, that one is being able to, got a question about doing similar tests for email wrappers when you're sending an email. It is not currently possible, but it is on the wish list. We've been getting some interest. I could see it happening. Definitely see the use for that one. Michelle asked if we have a Zapier integration. We do, in fact, have a Zapier integration. I can send some documentation here. I'm going to put it in the Q&A. If you have follow-ups about that, I'm happy to answer those. Got a question about discounted plans for C3, C4s. We don't generally have kind of C3, C4 discounts. All of our groups, we only work with progressive groups, and they are all kind of, you know, none of us are big corporations that are thriving and rolling in money. So we don't really offer discounts. Instead, we just try and make our prices as low as possible. Yeah, thanks, Becca. Hope this was helpful. Again, happy to stay if you have questions, but otherwise have a good one. Thanks for joining. Hope this was helpful. Yeah, of course. Thanks, Will. All right. If there are no other questions, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. Have a good one, everyone. Hope this stuff is useful and you can get an email about the next one that you do. Bye.